Oh, baby, we are live here on the Dream Stream at FTN Daily. It is Tuesday, and I'm here with my good friend, Tenacious David Jones, TDJ, fresh off a trip to the beach. Didn't quite get crowned the king, but from what you told me, it seemed like it was a pretty good experience out there.
It was good. I got this sweatshirt. I got this new Draftkings sweatshirt. It's pretty good. It's the best thing.
Nice.
It's like the most expensive thing I got from the trip. Cause I want some money. I came in like 45th. Yeah, like you wanted more, but we had a great time. I talked about it on the NFL show last night. Feeling good, but probably not feeling as good as John Kelly this morning. FTN MMA guy. If y'all aren't following John, you probably are now because he won $400,000 last night playing Showdown on 2 entries. $40 invested. I mean, it is the actual dream. That is more than I've ever won in a day. I'm more than everyone has ever won in a day, aside from Two Gun that's here at FTN. So, congrats to him, man. That is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, it was a party on Twitter late into the night, and then this morning, I think some people who had passed out. You know, the game wasn't super interesting, so I wouldn't fault anybody for getting to sleep a little early last night, but then waking up to all those screenshots and our celebrations for John. So shout out to John Kelly and a big congrats to him. But David, we got a really short NBA slate here on this Tuesday, obviously starting late, the 7:30 Eastern lock for these 3 games, 2 on national television, Brooklyn at Dallas, the first one on TNT tonight, followed by Celtics at Lakers. So those 2 sandwiching the Knicks and the lowly Spurs. So I think from a basketball perspective, the league got it right with their nationally televised game tonight. And then maybe I'll be the only one watching that game in the middle. But, I think a lot of stars on those 6 teams. So we've got some interesting options from a DFS perspective.
Yeah, they're making comparisons to NBA players that I look like today with the goggles on. I said Horace Grant. Who are other like famous goggle players?
Horace comes up first, right? Like,
yeah, I was gonna Sam Castile. Did he wear them, or did he just have a unique shaped face? I don't remember. Maybe. But yeah, Horace Grant will go with.
Yeah, I mean the rec specs are always iconic, right? So I mean, if you pull up, you got to go a little bit before our time to really find some of the legends like James Worthy. Kareem had the goggles on for a while. Kurt Rambis, kind of a Lakers themed. Reggie did have some goggles on for a little while. Bo Outlaw, Amari Stoudemire had those goggles on for a little while after getting hit in the eye. But I like the look, David.
They say I look like the guy that works the computer on Jurassic Park, but I'm missing the cig.
Yeah, you just need a little half smoked cig right there. So
hold on to your butts. We got a good slate.
Well, this first game, and anybody who's looking at the ranks, I did see they're updating really slowly, doing some funky things. It looks like tonight's ranks are in there, and then last night's ranks are still there with no players on them. I don't know if that has anything to do with the like AWS outage or like struggles that are going on today. But hopefully those get fixed pretty soon. But if everybody's seeing what I see, it looks funky, but all of today's players in there. And from what I know, last time I checked, Kyle's ownership projections, his DraftKings FanDuel projections, all that stuff is running just fine. So we should be able to manage here. And as I said, that first game is Brooklyn traveling to the great state of Texas to take on the Dallas Mavericks. And David, we can start with the visiting Nets. Obviously, Kyrie, Joe Harris still out for this team. James Johnson sat out the back end of the back-to-back last time, but is back in today. So starting up top, Durant and Harden separated by $100 on DraftKings. Do you have a lean on which of the Nets stars you prefer tonight?
If I'm going to play one. Also, I got to say this real quick, too. So John Kelly, the guy who won the 400Ks in the NBA chat, I don't see him in there often, so maybe he's about to dabble with some of those newfound bucks. So let's steer him straight. I actually think I'm on the other guy. I think most people are on Harden. I think if I were to pick one, and that's not saying I'm going to have one in my main lineup, but if I were to pick one, I think that it would be Kevin Durant. Just because of the scarcity, really, of the position. We know their ceilings are about the same. Kevin Durant's been more stable so far this year. I know Harden's been looking better, kind of rounding into form, but there's other guards that I like. And there's not as many forwards that I like. I mean, you've got LeBron up there with Durant, of course. You've got Jason Tatum, who at the price I'm going to prefer over Durant. But aside from that, pretty steep drop-off. The next highest price guy, at least I'm looking at FanDuel small forward, is Alec Burks, who I do like tonight too. But I'm choosing it's going to be going up against Dallas. Is that where you're leaning? Would you go Harden?
Yeah, I think I'm with you on KD. The biggest thing for both of the, like, I think on this short slate, with the minutes that these guys have been seeing, like 40 plus minutes on average over their last 4 games, I believe. I know that's the case for Kevin Durant and James Harden, falling just short, but at 39 minutes per game. I mean, for those two guys, with how we know they produce in terms of points per minute, like, I don't think you can really go wrong with either of them. And if you're running multiple lineups, I don't think it's absolutely nuts to stack the two. But if I'm choosing between those two guys, I think I'm with you on Durant. He just seems a little bit more solid this season, taking, between 18 and 28 shots per game. I think 18 is, I would be shocked if he shot less than that tonight, and would not be surprised to see upper 20s in shot attempts. And we know how he contributes across the box score. So obviously Harden does as well, but if choosing between the two, I'm on KD. But the rest of this roster is a lot more convoluted. Like, we have the return of Paul Millsap. Blake Griffin's still out of this rotation. James Johnson, as I said, coming back off the 1 game of rest. So I think Bruce Brown probably drops back down to the low teens in minutes. Mm-hmm. But you've got LaMarcus Aldridge and Patty Mills playing big minutes still for this Nets team. Do you like going there? 5'7" for Aldridge, center only on DK, 4'8" for Patty Mills. And then you look on FanDuel, and you've got Mills at 4'9" and Aldridge at 5'6", but Aldridge power forward eligible there on FanDuel.
Whenever you talk about like Mills and Aldridge, especially from you, I just keep thinking, my mind keeps going to Spurs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'll say too, like when we were talking about Durant, I started pulling Durant versus Harden. I started pulling up some numbers and stuff against the small forward. So there's not like a super soft spot tonight for small forward. I mean, you're looking at about league average and fantasy points allowed. The team that's the worst at covering the small forward on the slate is the Brooklyn Nets. However, they don't have anyone at that position on the opposing team, the Dallas Mavericks, that I'm worried about, right? But the Mavericks are going to be second worst, allowing 40.37 points per game, which again isn't like a huge number, but we're going up against Kevin Durant. So I think when you're just looking at like positionality, the other players at guard, Kevin Durant, if I'm choosing to, I'm pretty sold on Kevin Durant over Harden. But as far as like LaMarcus Aldridge goes, so I've been fading Aldridge like the past week or so, and I think it might have bit me once, but on a large slate it didn't. I don't think he was in the GPP winning lineup. Maybe he got 32 or 33 or something at his cheap price. Mm-hmm. I've been fading him because clearly it's not like the LaMarcus Aldridge of old, right? Even when he's getting 30, 32 minutes, like breaking 26 isn't any kind of guarantee. However, on tonight's slate, I think it does make sense to play him. Now, I know he's showing up like 50% owned last time I checked over on FanDuel, which is a lot, right? But he's got a good matchup going up against the Mavs. Some of the numbers, like when you're looking at center against the Mavs, like are without like Porzingis in there, but I'm not positive that matters too much, especially on a small slate. Because, I mean, Porzingis is in, Luke is in, like, we know this. But Mavericks are bottom 3 against centers, fantasy production allowed. Give up the 4th most rebounds, 2nd most real points, 4th most assists. Aldridge is going to see the 30 minutes again. Like, at the price tag, even if he does put up, like, 26, he might be on the winning team. If he puts up 34, he's going to be on the winning team. So, with the other options you have today, as far as salary savers go, like, I know that there's better guys at the position that you can sneak him in. Is he just power? No, he's power forward and center on both sides. So there's like other spin ups you can get.
Aldridge is now center only on Draftkings. Yeah, they changed it. Yeah,
on FanDuel, I think it's power forward. So
yeah, you're correct.
Clearly, you can spend up and get guys that are obviously going to get more points. But for the price, Aldridge, I think, is fine. I've got a lot of them. And honestly, I'm running the FTN Opto, and it's like trying to give me 100%. I might do it. I might not, but I might. We'll see when we get off the show. But, yeah, you go with Aldridge. And as far as Mills goes, price is cheap enough to squeak him into. Now, I wouldn't play him over someone like a Dennis Schroeder tonight or a Marcus Smart if you can fit them in. I like the Knicks guards a lot. There's rumors of a new Knicks lineup coming out, which we'll talk about when we get there. So, if they slid quickly up into the starting line, I'm not sure I like Mills over quickly as it is, but I'm not sure that I like him over Rose as it is. But as far as price goes, the Opto's giving me some, but I'd rather have one of the New York guards or, of course, the Celtics guys.
Yeah, I hear you. And you talk about how the Opto's throwing a bunch of Aldridge at you. I think that's kind of going on across the industry, especially on FanDuel. Kyle's ownership projections right now saying 63% LaMarcus Aldridge on FanDuel. That would be the second highest owned player over there. And then on DraftKings, no slouch in the ownership projections either, 35 and a third percent, good for third on the slate. And I'll be interested to see when we get to that Spurs side because I see Lonnie Walker as the second highest projected owned guy on DraftKings. And I take issue with that if that's how the field is going to treat the Spurs today, but we'll get there. I'm with you on Aldridge. I think he's a strong play. No shortage of guys in that Dallas front court that would take LaMarcus off the court or especially on the defensive end. He can guard the likes of Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber and any of those other bigs, even Kristaps Porzingis, he could take on it and be just fine. So I like Aldridge. I think Mills is also acceptable for 8. It's just the minutes for me. Patty Mills is going to have to hit his shots to get you there in any cash or tournament sense. But the minutes being so solid, only dropped below 33 once in his last 5 games with a minute ceiling of 38 against the Phoenix Suns. So I think Patty Mills at 4.8 on DK and 4.9 on FanDuel is a very solid play. But then you get down into the weeds here with this Brooklyn team. We talked about how Blake Griffin's still out of this rotation, James Johnson coming back from his 1 game of rest, Paul Millsap playing low teens in minutes, and then the rookie Cam Thomas breaking into the rotation over the last few weeks should see upper teens, maybe low 20s in minutes. Did any of these value guys stand out to you?
Cam Thomas I looked at for a while today, but it's not like any kind of he could just get 12 minutes. He could get 20 minutes. You just don't know. I tend to think that it's going to be less today. I don't have much interest. On DraftKings, you can talk me into it, right? On FanDuel, probably not because of the price over on DraftKings. But I tend to think the starters are going to get more run tonight. This one's on national TV, right?
Yes, sir. This is the first TNT game of the night.
Yeah. I don't think we get a ton of Cam Thomas tonight, and really just because it's a nationally televised game, and you're not going to need to run him out there for that. The game's projected to be close. I know he's got some run in some close games, but I'm not too high on him really. On DraftKings, what's the ceiling he can get? I mean, I know his shot's been falling in some of these games, but what do you say?
I mean, it's still probably low 20s for a ceiling right now for Cam Thomas. So if he has his best game, I guess if he hits, say, I don't think he's shot above 5 for 9, 4 for 7 has been his best outing in the last week or two. So say he went 7 for 9, maybe he's getting you 25 DK points, but I think things would have to go sideways in that game.
Do you think he's getting, I know that it's a completely different position than James Johnson, but do you think I didn't watch the last 2 games. Were they leaning more on small ball with Johnson out because they had Brown and Cam Thomas starting to get more minutes? Is that directly correlated with Johnson?
It was Bruce Brown, in my opinion, was the direct correlation in terms of who got James Johnson's minutes. Paul Millsap picked up maybe 2 or 3 more, but he's been Paul Millsap has been in that 12 to 15 range pretty consistently since he came back to this team on November 22nd. And Bruce Brown was the one who had really seen a minutes decrease over the last few weeks and then up to 26 in that close game against Chicago. I think Bruce Brown probably is the one that loses out most here. And out of all these guys, James Johnson at 3.2, only power forward eligible on DraftKings. And if you look at him on FanDuel, gets the small and power forward eligibility. Out of those cheap Nets, James Johnson's where I'm going. I know you're a guy who fancies himself some narratives. James Johnson did have a brief stint with the Mavericks. And if we go back to LaMarcus Aldridge, it's a Dallas boy. He's coming back home. So if you need any extra kick in the rear end to play some LaMarcus Aldridge, there you have it.
I do like that about LaMarcus Aldridge. I remember that now. James Johnson, not too worried about that narrative. Like I was going to say I like that with guys in their prime, but LaMarcus Aldridge isn't in his prime either. But I wouldn't play James Johnson with Bembry. I would prefer Bembry, I think, over James Johnson. I mean, we're still going to see Bembry starting and then James Johnson coming off the bench. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my assumption. So I would still prefer Bembry there, and Bembry's been hitting value. So him. So on the team, Marcus Aldridge is my favorite, followed by Durant. And then as far as salary and stuff goes, in positionality, I'd probably go Bembry next, just because again, there's other guards that I like more.
So before we jump to the Dallas side, on DraftKings, I'm right there with you with Johnson and Bembry on FanDuel because they're only $200 apart. But where it's an $1,100 difference on DraftKings, would you rather side with James Johnson there instead of Bembry at 4-3?
$1,000 difference. I mean, that's pretty interesting. I probably would go Johnson on DraftKings there just because of the value, but to me, it's still relatively close. I wouldn't start my team with James Johnson. If you just had the salary left over and you're like, shit, I got to play James Johnson, hope he does good. That's the way it would go.
Yeah, I think on DraftKings for me, it just makes both of them kind of secondary value plays at best. But I'm with you. Bembry on FanDuel, my preference there. Swinging over to the Dallas side, the home team here. All these guys are in, with the exception of Sterling Brown. We had a lot of probables and questionables throughout the day for the Mavericks. So we've got Luka Doncic up top, Kristaps Porzingis returning as well, 7-6 on DraftKings, Luka 10-3 on FanDuel, Porzingis up at 8-5. Is this the Luka spot for you? We talked about the Brooklyn studs. We'll get to the guys in the other two games. Luka, the most expensive player on DraftKings and 10-3 on FanDuel. Is he a priority for you tonight?
Depends on the site. So on DraftKings, he's $1,400 more expensive than DeJounte Murray. Yeah. On FanDuel, he's $400 more expensive than DeJounte Murray. So on FanDuel, I would tend to lean Luka just because the price is so close. But Murray's shown really almost just as high of ceiling and really been more steady at scoring more points in the past week and a half than Luka has. So I think I would prefer Murray over Luka if I had to just choose one and could not fit them both. If you can fit them both, then you're probably good for 50 points. But look, it's going to be in a good spot. Going up against the Nets. Again, let me pull it up right here. The Nets against the point guard, allowing 46.30 points against them. Pretty high rebound rate, which is something Luka does well against the point guard. That's good. Allowing about 23 actual points, 3.5 3-pointers. Luka with I would prefer Luka if Porzingis was off, probably across the board. Everyone's real high on Luka tonight. I'm not as high. I think he can get you 50, but I don't think he's going to go nuts and get 65 and be an absolute priority. I have more faith really in DeJounte Murray at this point. That's probably sounds crazy to some people, but I just like what DeJounte Murray's doing a lot right now. So FanDuel, I'll take him, but on DraftKings, I'll take Murray.
Well, you were on the right stream with the right partner to talk about some DeJounte Murray love, but in terms of Luka, I'm kind of the same way. You can certainly get a similar upside with DeJounte for that discount on DraftKings, but I think Luka too, it's just any slate where he can bust out an 80, right? Mm-hmm. On the right night, we know Luka has that in his bag. So I like him for that upside. I would prefer him over both Brooklyn guys if I could only choose one. And I would love to pair him with one of those guys in kind of a little mini game stack and maybe get some value from the other two games to go alongside that. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. So, Luka's dealing with the sore ankle and the sore thumb, and thankfully one of the Morris brothers isn't on the Nets. But if Luka is how serious do you think those injuries are? And is the thumb, I should know this, but I don't, is the thumb on the shooting hand? Do we know that? So let's find
that. I actually don't know. And if anybody in the chat knows, I know we've got some Mavs diehards here at FTN in the NBA chat, but if anybody knows what thumb, which hand the thumb is on that's injured, that sprained thumb for Luka. Also, as David alluded to, the sore ankle is what kept him out of that game over the weekend. I don't know, man. Like, he went through a full practice. He's been playing through it for, it feels like at least 10 days now. And been playing like just fine. Like, he had obviously the down game against the Pelicans and kind of that embarrassing blowout loss at home. But like, you look at the games before that, 11 of 16, 9 of 21, 13 of 25 from the field. Like, it doesn't seem to be affecting his shooting outside of the last game where he was 7 of 20 and 0 for 6 from 3. And the peripherals have still very much been there. 10 rebounds in 2 of his last 3, over 10 assists in 3 of his last 4. I don't have too much of a worry that the injuries are going to hinder him tonight.
Left thumb. So not a shooting hand, but I still like Murray. I'd still take Murray over Luka.
Well, and if we're talking about the Spurs, well, obviously we'll get there as a team here in a minute, but Coach Pop just said in his pregame availability, the Spurs will not rest anybody on the second leg of a back-to-back. So the times they are a-changing, David. When we look at Kristaps Porzingis for 7-6, only power forward eligible on DraftKings, still has power forward center eligibility on FanDuel, but more expensive over there by $900. He's been producing really well when he's been getting the time. And the time has been there for the most part, 30-plus minutes until these last 2 games. The one blowout against New Orleans, he was on pace for well over that. And then they got blown out by Cleveland on the 29th, was well on pace for well over 30 minutes, I should say, in that one. With this game projecting to be close, especially at 7-6 on DraftKings, I think Kristaps Porzingis is a great play tonight on that side.
On DraftKings, yeah, I like him more. On FanDuel, I like him if he fits. Like, surprisingly, like, the Nets have been a little bit better against power forward than I would think this year, but just with the bodies they have down there. But price makes total sense. Would you play Porzingis with Luka? Does that matter? I don't think it really does on a 3-game slate. Like, if the game happens to go into overtime, you're going to need them both. But you have any issue with that, Luka and Porzingis?
No, that's where I'm at too. It's just kind of the context of the slate, right? Where a rule maybe that you would set on like a 6-game slate, not so important for me here, especially if we think that this game is going to stay close. So the shorter the slate, the more apt I am to actually game stack and try to catch the, either the game that goes up tempo a little bit higher than the projected total, or you catch that overtime. And then, hopefully you're climbing to the top of the leaderboards, just having 5 or 6 guys from the same game. So I'm definitely not against that. But if you do that, you're going to want to have a Brooklyn bring back. One of those is probably going to be a spend up. So it's going to take a lot of your salary if you're game stacking this game compared to, I think, the latter 2 that we'll talk about. But no issue stacking those 2 guys. But then you look at the rest of the Mavs with Luka and Porzingis, and there's not a ton here that I like. Like, Tim Hardaway Jr. has not been good when those 2 guys have been in. I would rather Brunson for 300 less, but I think the field will as well. And when I kick it to you here in a second, I want to go check on Tim Hardaway Jr.'s ownership, because it feels like, as we talk about it and how I feel about him, that he would be really low owned today, and maybe somebody that if you're running multiple lineups, you would want to get over the field on if he's super low. But that's just a feeling right now. I'll double check with Kyle's projections. How are you treating kind of the mid-range Maverick guys?
We are. Someone just asked about the projections. I'm checking on those right now. So 1 second. Sending over to our guys to make sure that gets updated. Hardaway was showing up at like 5% or something earlier in the day, just because people didn't know if he was going to play or not. I hate playing Tim Hardaway Jr. I'm not a Tim Hardaway Jr. fan. He had a good game the last game out. People will probably look at that and maybe get his ownership up a little bit. And for the price makes sense. Look, is he any kind of priority at all? No, he's not. Do I want to be? Well, it's hard to say underweight if he's 5% owned, but he should get up to like 15 or something like that. That's about where I'd cap it at. I don't have him projected for any kind of big game.
Yeah, and that certainly makes sense. If I'm looking at this DK ownership now, let me pull up Hardaway. Yeah, I mean, projected for 4.25% ownership on DK, 5% on FanDuel. So I think Tim Hardaway at that price is somebody that if I was running 20 lineups, I could run 2 with Tim Hardaway Jr. and double the field if he does come in at 5%, right? So that's something that if I was building, maybe I would try to do. Again, I would prefer Brunson. But then I think really, David, like I'm more interested in a Maxi Klieber at 4.4, a Dorian Finney-Smith at 4.3, just for the savings. And I think those guys can kind of scrap their way to value at those low 4K price tags.
Someone's asking, you just mentioned Brunson, so I'll bring it up. Nilo's asking in the chat, Brunson or Rose? Do you have like a are you on Brunson tonight? You like Brunson tonight, or he's just kind of an ancillary piece?
Yeah, just an ancillary piece for me. Obviously, we saw the not big game for his standards really with Porzingis and Luka out on Saturday night, but we saw the 21 shot attempts in 37 minutes. Both of those numbers will come down with Porzingis and Luka back in the lineup, but at 5.2, especially in this Brooklyn matchup, I think he's definitely viable. And then over on FanDuel where he's 5.3, it's just kind of the same thing for me. It's like if I get to him, I'm fine with it, but he's not a priority. And to be honest, man, like you talk about Derrick Rose, that Knicks lineup, if Tibbs does in fact make a change, is going to be big. Like, it can be, and we'll talk about it here in a minute, but there's a number of ways that they could go. As we do get starters for this first game, Nets will start Harden, Mills, Bembry, Durant, Aldridge. Mavs will start Doncic, Bullock, Finney-Smith, Porzingis, and Powell. So no surprises there, but with Reggie Bullock and Dwight Powell getting the start here, extremely cheap on DraftKings. Bullock 3.1, Dwight Powell the minimum. And looking at FanDuel, Dwight Powell more expensive at 4.3, but Reggie Bullock 3.7. Any interest for those guys getting the start for Dallas?
No, all punts. Not on Dorian Finney-Smith. Like it never works for me. Like it never works. I mean, he's cheap. I get it. You can go there. I would try and avoid it. Bullock, I think he's cheaper over on DraftKings. You might want to take a shot there, but I don't think you have to do that. I really don't. Like I know we're looking for value to try and fit in some of these bigs, but those aren't two guys that I'm real interested in. We're checking on those rankings. We think it might be an AWS issue or whatever that is. So
yeah. Oh well. Shout out Josh Kalachi. Fix the ranks, at least for me. Everybody who's asking about that, go refresh them. They look nice and clean now. So I appreciate that, Josh. Anything else from this Mavericks team? You ready to move on to the second game?
Yeah, not a lot from the Mavericks team that I really like. Like the last person you could possibly fit into like MME stuff would be Maxi Klieber, but I don't have a lot of interest there either. You certainly wouldn't play him with like Powell, and I wouldn't play him with like Hardaway or Brunson either because I don't want more than one guy coming off the bench of the same team. But yeah, any interest there? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I think Klieber is just fine. Like I kind of view him in the same vein as Dorian Finney-Smith. Probably less minutes for Klieber coming off the bench here, but I mean, he's a guy who can go out there and bang 5 threes and pick up 7-8 rebounds, and at 4.4 could put up a decent score. But again, not a priority for me. Just kind of value filler.
You think the Knicks, since we're about to, I guess we'll transition to the Knicks with this. Talking about the lineup change, do you think it could potentially be Nerlens Noel starting at center?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Nerlens for Mitch Robinson is one way they could go. I think Obi Toppin for Mitch Robinson is another way they could go. And then you could obviously get Quickly or Derrick Rose breaking into the starting lineup. So I do think we'll see a change. But now getting to this Knicks at Spurs game, I think the biggest thing up top for me is Julius Randle. Ever since Kemba Walker was ejected from this rotation, the massive minutes have returned for Julius Randle. Only 35, but they got blown out by Denver over the weekend. The two previous games, 39 and 40 minutes for Julius Randle. So more like a minutes load that we saw last year. And at 9-1 against this below average at best Spurs defense, I have some significant interest. He's not up there with the likes of DeJounte Murray, Luka, Jason Tatum, who we'll get to for me today on DraftKings, but he's absolutely a fine play. And I would encourage, if people are running multiple lineups, to definitely get some Julius Randle at 9-1.
I wrote up Julius Randle. I'm noticing an error in what I wrote up right now, but there's not like real great spots to target really. with the big men today, in my opinion. Like, yeah, I'd rather have Tatum, but Randle's been pretty solid. So aside from the Lakers, Spurs have been the next best target for the power forward on the slate. And I've been surprised the Lakers have been so bad down low too, quite honestly. But they did just move Dwight Howard, who's I mean, look, it's not Dwight Howard of old, just like LaMarcus Aldridge, but he's a decent enough defender at this point, I guess. I guess is what the Lakers think he is. He used to be a great defender. What am I talking about? But second best spot on the slate to target with power forward. Randle's been playing good. Really, and when you've got – so what I tend to want to do is, like, avoid Jakob Poeltl going against the Spurs because he's a very good defender, but he's going to be locked up on whoever starts, whether it's Robinson or Nerlens, which is going to, in my opinion, give Randle the opportunity to soak up maybe a few more boards, take a couple more shots. Everything you said about Kemba's true, even though like he wasn't doing too much to begin with, but Randle's been playing better ever since Kemba's been off the field. So I like Randle just fine. I think the price is fair. I think we're getting a bit of a discount on him right now because he hasn't just been going nuts all season. So, yeah, man, I'm good with Randle. He's probably my second favorite power forward, but he's also center eligible. So on a slate where I don't think there's a lot of centers, then you can plug him in there too, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think the price on Julius on both sides is pretty attractive. That 8-7 over there on FanDuel is nice, and 9-1 on DK. But our own Marshall Gershon chiming in the chat saying that he saw Nerlens Noel worked with the starters at the shoot-around this morning. So that would certainly make us lean towards him getting the start. Yeah. So Nerlens Noel at 3.9, I would have some significant interest there. Wouldn't go crazy. Jakob Poeltl is not the best matchup in the league. Yeah. But at 3.9, center only on DK. But to your point, not a ton of center only guys that are, necessities today. And if you look at Nerlens too on center only on FanDuel at 4.9, I think a really solid value, but does this mean that you're not going to see any Mitchell Robinson if we get that change? Like, I feel like they'll just flip-flop like kind of that 26, 22 minute role, right?
And that would put Mitchell Robinson not on Jakob Poeltl, right? So,
yeah, good point.
I mean, that's still going to be a bump for Nerlens, though. It's still a bump.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, he'll get more minutes. I mean, I think I would like him more and just hope it's not a Mitch Rob game. I mean, you got to like the starter, even though it's a bad matchup. He's 3,900. He's 4,900 over on FanDuel. I'm looking at it right now, trying to see if I could just take Mitch Rob out. Because that, to me, that means Nerlens Noel is starting. If he's practicing with the starters on a day the coach said there's going to possibly be a lineup change, I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So I think that's how we should operate. We should get that lineup pretty soon. Maybe not before lock here, but you look at DK, Mitch Robinson only $200 more expensive than Nerlens. So you have some flexibility there with whichever of those guys you put into a lineup. It'll be interesting, though, too, to see, do we get a change in the backcourt as well? Does Derrick Rose get in there for Alec Burks, or does RJ Barrett or Evan Fournier come to the bench, Burks slide to the 2, and either Quickly or Rose get to the 1? Like, we'll be in Discord if that news comes out after the stream ends, but certainly something to be aware of. If Nerlens Noel is the only change to this starting lineup, I think you can still go back to Alec Burks. He lost time in the blowout against Denver over the weekend, but then before that you saw 43, 39, and 39 minutes from Alec Burks. So even at the elevated price tag on DraftKings and then elevated on FanDuel as well, guard forward eligible 6,500, I still think he's very much in play. After that, it's kind of roulette between RJ Barrett, Derrick Rose, Emmanuel Quickly, Evan Fournier for me until we get clarification on the lineup.
With the pricing where it is for the Knicks guards on FanDuel, because that's what I'm focused on tonight, I'm thinking about jamming at least one of them in there. I mean, they're all underpriced. One of them always goes off. 3 of them won't go off, but at least one will in MME stuff. And I like Burks the most. I'm going to always like Burks the most, I think. Rose after that, Quickly after that. What do you think about that rule, to jam in at least one of those guards?
Yeah, I don't hate that at all, because I think at the end of the night, this Knicks team favored on the road last time I checked. Still favored by 1.5 on the road against San Antonio here. I think it's likely that one of those guys at the end of the night, you're going to look at the box score and say, man, I wish I had that score in my lineup. I don't hate that at all.
Someone saying is Obi viable? And how do you pronounce his last name?
I say Obi Toppin.
I have heard announcers pronounce it Tobin. I've
Yeah.
always thought it was Toppin too, but I've heard people say Obi Topin. So
Yeah, I think you're on with Obi Toppin there, but maybe both of us are. I don't know if there's any Dayton alumni in the chat, but I'm sure they could let us know. Former Player of the Year, Obi Toppin at Dayton.
That's one I heard someone say it differently recently, and I'm like, okay, I don't know, maybe everyone's been saying it wrong. Oh, that happens a lot, but all right, let's move.
Yeah, let's go to the Spurs side. We already talked a lot about DeJounte Murray. I'm right with you, David. I think he's a smash play tonight at 9.5 on DraftKings and at 9.9 on FanDuel. Also a strong play. Still getting that 1.1x multiplier on Superdraft. So, shocker, the biggest Spurs homer in DFS likes DeJounte Murray. But I think it's warranted at this point of the season. We've seen enough of the new rates, the big performances. I mean, this guy, like DeJounte at this point from a fantasy perspective is like Luka light. Or Harden light, right? He's not quite there with his ceiling, but the production is extremely, extremely solid. 19, 8, and 8 with 2 steals per game. Obviously, DeJounte Murray, one of the better two-way guards in the league at this point. But then you look at Derrick White, 6'2", been performing at a much higher level than he did to start the season, but a bit of a down game last night, lost a few minutes against Phoenix as well. Jakob Poeltl has been great this season when he's been available for the Spurs, 5'9" on DraftKings, and where's he at? 6'3" on FanDuel. I think both of those guys viable. DeJounte and Poeltl, my 2 favorites up top here for the Spurs, though. Are you playing any Derrick White, Jakob Poeltl? How about Keldon Johnson?
So I wanted to play Derrick White, and then I saw his price. I mean, it's really a good spot for him going up against the Knicks. Knicks worst on the slate in fantasy points allowed against the shooting guard, 5th worst overall in the league. Give up a ton of assists, a ton of rebounds to the shooting guard. Real points is like average, but as far as fantasy points goes, giving up almost 42 fantasy points to the position. But he's really high priced. Now, I think that lowers his. I don't like to play like this. I think that lowers his ownership. And could he go out and drop 40? Yeah, he really could. And would that be good enough on the slate? Probably. But his price is high. So I'd rather have Murray. Poeltl, I love Poeltl. Like it's just my guy. But his ceiling isn't really high, but it's very solid floor, right? And I don't really love going up against the Knicks bigs either, but I think he gets you his standard 30, 32. Might get hot on you, might stay like average, but he's not going to go cold on you. So Poeltl's fine. Do I have to have him? I don't think I have to, especially if Nerlens Noel is going to start, because I would take that value probably over him. But Poeltl's my guy. You can never really go wrong with him. He'll give you 32.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. And Devin Vassell will remain out for San Antonio tonight. Okay. So solidifies the minutes floor, I think, for Doug McDermott, probably in the mid-20s here at 4K flat on DraftKings. I think he is a decent punt. Again, not a priority, but there's not a ton of priorities for me with these value guys across the slate. I think it's a lot of mixing and matching and kind of depends on the context of what the particular lineup you're talking about. Lonnie Walker at 3-4. I think he's acceptable, but dude, if Kyle's got him for nearly 40% projected ownership on DraftKings right now, and if that's the case, I want 0 Lonnie Walker. Like I'd rather take shots on Dougie McBuckets, even Bryn Forbes from this team at 3-1, rather than take on a 40% Lonnie Walker who could get 15 minutes and put up 9 fantasy points. And I just don't think the ceiling is attractive enough for me to get there at such high ownership. Any of those guys interest you, or are they just all secondary at best?
Pretty secondary. I'm not getting a lot of them. I'm spending down a lot at the guard. I'm spending up at the forward positions is how my builds are looking right now. Mcdermott, not that interested. Keldon Johnson, I'm getting like 35% of him. He's fine.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't usually get Johnson right. I leave that up to you. Like, what's your how much Johnson do you have tonight? And are you doing multiple lineups?
DraftKings, I would not probably play any. If like I did a crunch and I got 15 to 20%, I'd probably just let it ride based on my fandom. But like he's not as good from a fantasy perspective with Jakob Poeltl in. But it's a different story on FanDuel where he's 5'4". Like he's too cheap there, even with all these guys healthy for the Spurs. I like him a good bit at 5'4" on FanDuel, but where you have to pay 5'7" for him on DK, I'm not interested, especially with only power forward eligibility. So the versatility for putting Keldon in your lineup tonight just really isn't there for me on DraftKings. And then I saw a couple people earlier in the day talking about Josh Primo, President Primo, as I like to call him. Can't go there tonight. 18 minutes against Phoenix last game. He's been good in the G League so far, but that 22 fantasy points against Phoenix was bolstered by 7 stocks in his 18 minutes. Cannot count on that again. So I would not play Josh Primo on this slate. You ready to move to the final game?
Yeah, I know you asked me about Lonnie Walker, and I didn't really answer that. I'm not really on him either. And to transition to the next game, if you don't mind, if I hope you transition, we have a couple Lakers questions. So Dwight Howard or Nerlens Noel if he starts?
Man, that's tough, right? Because Dwight, I mean, been getting the start. Obviously, the minutes are probably going to be limited against most teams, even if he does get the start, because down the stretch, you just move Anthony Davis to the 5, and there's no need for Dwight Howard, much less DeAndre Jordan, any of those other center guys that the Lakers have. So I'm with you. I'll take Noel over Dwight Howard, but I don't think you can really go wrong in the sense that both of them are some of the better value plays on the slate at this point. And I think for the bigger picture, that tells you a big story about how bad the value is on this slate that we're looking at Nerlens Noel and Dwight Howard and having such a big conversation about it. Jabari Parker ruled out with I assume, non-COVID illness. Bruno Fernando also out for the Celtics. So I don't think that really matters, with the exception of maybe if Jabari Parker was going to get 2 or 3 minutes in some sort of foul trouble situation. Those probably go to Grant Williams now, but I didn't have either of those guys in for any minutes, David. So just kind of empty news there.
I want to make sure I get to Rybut's question too, because I think he's waiting, and it's also a Lakers question. I don't want him to miss out. And I think it's a very hard question. So, and we'll have to burn through this because we're running out of time. AD Smart or LBJ Schroeder? I think that's extremely hard question.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the second one. I slightly prefer LeBron to Anthony Davis tonight if I have to choose between the two, only for the reason that LeBron is the one that, he cares that they're 500. The Lakers look like shit right now to anybody who's paying attention. And LeBron does not take that well. And you can see it in his production since he came back. This dude's 29, 25, 20, 23 shots. He's getting more involved in the assist game. Got over double-digit rebounds in the last game for the first time in maybe since October. And he's pressing with, like I said, with his shot to 23, 33, 30, and 39 points for LeBron in their last 4. Obviously, some of those stats bolstered by the 3 overtime game against the Kings, but I think the point still stands. LeBron is playing big minutes, and he wants a win tonight on national television. So I would lean with LeBron and Dennis Schroeder with no Jalen Brown. I prefer Schroeder to Smart, so I'm on the second side there.
You talked me into it. I prefer Schroeder to Smart too, and makes sense with me what you're saying with LeBron. So
let's go ahead and break down the top of the Lakers. I made my case for LeBron. I do think Anthony Davis is just fine at 10-2. And Russell Westbrook, I would probably have 0 of in 150 lineups. This guy hasn't broken 47 DraftKings points in any game this season with LeBron and Anthony Davis healthy. The only 2 times he has was, I believe, the game where LeBron got ejected, and another game, the 3 overtime game. Those are the 2 times Russell Westbrook has cracked 47 DraftKings points this season with LeBron playing any minute in the game. So at 10K, I just want Anthony Davis, I want LeBron James, and I don't want any Russell Westbrook. And if this is the night that Russell Westbrook breaks out of this, I won't say a funk, because I think that's just how he is now. If he, goes off for 60 and kills me, then I'll congrats to the people that did play him, but I can't play Russ tonight.
Yeah, he's definitely not my favorite. Do I have him mixed in a little bit because I'm scared to not? I do. On FanDuel, he is under Harden. He's under Luka. He's under Murray. He is 9.5, 400 difference from Murray, 700 difference from Luka. Maybe I should dial it back a little bit. But, to be fair, it could happen with Westbrook, but is it likely? No, probably not. You're right. He's totally better. Obviously, everyone knows he's better when the other 2 are on the floor. But on a 3-game slate, I wouldn't play him over Murray, Luka, or Harden. But if you want to play him with one of those 2, I don't really have a problem with that.
Here's an interesting question from Romulus that I missed about 20 minutes ago. Klieber, Bembry, or Doug McDermott on DraftKings for you?
I would probably go Bembry. I think Bembry's been playing fine. Like, I probably have the most confidence in him right now. I don't think it's Doug McDermott for me. I'd probably go Bembry. I have a lot of Bembry. I have like 66% Bembry tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I think he just kind of brings the highest ceiling of those guys. And then I think the safest one with Devin Vassell out is Doug McDermott. I like Doug McDermott 24, 25 minutes for the Spurs tonight at 4K flat. I just don't think he has the same type of ceiling that a guy like Bembry, who could get 30-plus minutes, which, again, this is speaking to the quality of this slate when we're arguing between Dougie McBuckets and DeAndre Bembry. But, yeah, Bembry for both of us. 2v2 here for Kruggers, and then we'll get back to this last game. Porzingis and Josh Richardson, or Dorian Finney-Smith and Marcus Smart. For me, it's the first one. It's not super close.
Porzingis and Richardson, or Finney-Smith and Smart? Yeah, first one. Easy.
Yeah. So the rest of this Lakers roster, we already talked about Dwight Howard, and I think the rest of the conversation should revolve around THT, Carmelo Anthony, who is in with that illness, and Malik Monk. I prefer Malik Monk, not just based on the recency bias that he's been fantastic as a value, 31-plus DraftKings points in 4 of the last 5 games here. He provides floor spacing at a position of need. You know, Carmelo Anthony kind of bogs things down on the defensive end, even though he has been shooting at what I think is a career high rate from beyond the arc this season. And THT, I also think, is a little bit redundant when LeBron and Brow and Russell Westbrook are all out there. And we've seen that in his minutes since LeBron came back. So Malik Monk for me out of those 3, but how do you prioritize the mid-range there for LA?
I don't have a lot of any of them. I think Monk's price has gone up higher than I want to pay for him. You could get quick. I'm talking FanDuel now. Quickly, Brunson, Barrett, Schroeder, Fournier, Mills, Bembry. The last 2 aren't going to outscore him, I don't think. But I don't have a ton of them. I've got him projected for like mid-20s points. I don't think he cracks 30 tonight, and I think you're going to need him to if you play him. And I think he's going to be popular. I think he's going to be overowned. So I don't have much. Nationally televised game, you're not going to let Malik Monk go nuts. I mean, I just don't see him getting a ton of run. I don't know. And he's not like a guy that you can super count on either. Like, he's fine. He's a good player. I'm not trying to trash the guy, but he's not reliable. He's not reliable to get you fantasy points.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. Again, just the context of this slate, I think if I'm running multiple lineups, that outside of Dwight Howard is probably my favorite Laker value. But on the other side, the biggest news in this game, Jalen Brown will sit here for the Celtics. So you've got Jason Tatum 9-4 on DraftKings and over on FanDuel at 9-7. Going to absorb some usage, 34.1% usage for Jason Tatum in the 11 games without Jalen Brown this season. We talked a little bit about Dennis Schroeder down at 6-4 on DraftKings, and then you can find him for 5-2 on FanDuel, which I think I would lock into 150 lineups. Ownership be damned. I'm taking Dennis Schroeder 5-2 every single day, 10 out of 10 times with Jalen Brown out in this matchup. Talk about revenge. Dennis Schroeder wanted the bag from the Lakers, and they would not give it to him. Now going back to the West Coast, I like him at 6-4 on DK, and again, I would lock him on FanDuel.
I mean, he screwed that up pretty royally. Obviously, he knows that he was trying to talk his way out of it. Like, he didn't that's not like there wasn't a real offer. I don't know. There might not have been, but there was at the same time. I'm locking him in. I'm locking him in 52-100 on FanDuel. I've got 100%. Last time he played the Lakers, he started super slow, really bad slow. If I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure I am because I know I rostered him that night, and he finished with 32 fantasy points. It's still a great spot to go against the Lakers with the point guard, allowing the 3rd most fantasy points of the position. I know we're running out of time, but I have 100% Schroeder. Too cheap. No Brown. Play Schroeder.
How about a guy like Josh Richardson, 3-5, shooting guard only on DraftKings, which is somewhat disappointing. Guard forward eligible on FanDuel, but 4.5K there. When Jalen Brown's been out, his minutes have been extremely solid. But, as the case is with Josh Richardson at this point in his career, the production is really shaky. So how about that volatility? I like Josh Richardson a lot at 3-5 on DraftKings, but where you stand on him?
No, yeah, he'll get a minutes bump with Brown out. I mean, you've got to get the shot to fall. It's not Josh Richardson that we saw with the Miami Heat, but the price makes sense for someone that could get going. Like, I would probably play like Richardson. I would consider playing him over like a Finney Smith, even like any of these guys like coming like Obi Toppin or Obi Topin. I'd probably rather play him over him. Unless we see that like Topin's getting the minutes, just as maybe a lower owned kind of dart throw. Don't love him. Would I consider it an MME? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Would you play him over like Carmelo Anthony or like? Well, it's a big price discrepancy there, but it's pretty much the same thing. You just need the shot to fall.
Yeah, I would much rather Jay Rich. I think Jay Rich brings a higher upside with his peripherals. Rebounds, assist, excuse me. Kind of similar, but the stock upside for Jay Rich, like he can still go in there and get you 3, 4, 5 stocks on his best night. So for the discount, I would much rather Jay Rich tonight at 3.5. How about the front court here? Al Horford, Robert Williams, separated by 1,300 on DraftKings, but Horford carrying the forward eligibility. Over there on FanDuel, you see the price is much closer, only separated by 400, both with forward eligibility. You getting any Al Horford or Time Lord tonight?
I don't have much of those guys. No, I think there's better plays at the position, so I don't really want to recommend them. Someone's asking me where's the tan. I don't know. I tried. It was cold. Should we answer some of these questions real quick? I feel like we should with Lock coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Marshall chiming in here, 2v2 on DraftKings for single entry. LeBron James and Keldon or Tatum and Smart?
I'll take Tatum and Smart. I'll take Tatum and Smart.
Yeah, I think I would do the same. If I have both of those guys, I would make sure I would get probably get a Lakers player in there as well. Triple H asking Tim Hardaway Jr. or Dorian Finney-Smith.
I don't like either of them.
Get another option.
maybe THJ if you're not playing Monk. I think THJ is going to kind of steal for. I don't like any of them, but I guess THJ. I hate it though.
Yeah, if I have to choose between the two, it's Tim Hardaway Jr. Josh Richardson.
Oh, I thought he was. Okay. Sorry, I was reading that wrong. I thought he was talking about Talen Horton. I saw TH.
Gotcha.
I would take THJ.
Josh Richardson or Doug McDermott. I think I would go Doug McDermott. I think it's a little bit safer. But if you can upgrade elsewhere with the savings that you get on Josh Richardson on DraftKings, that extra $500, then I'm obviously fine with either.
Dwight or Jay Rich? I'll take Dwight. I think.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to assume that Dwight will get the start again tonight with the Time Lord Horford front court there. So I will slightly lean Dwight. Let's see, 2v2 here. Lonnie Walker and Kristaps Porzingis or DeAndre Bembry and Alec Burks?
I don't see that one. Read it again.
Lonnie and Porzingis or Bembry and Burks?
Bembry and Burks.
Yeah, I would also lean to that side. Doug or Dwight, last man in on DK?
Nerlens. I guess I go Dwight over Doug.
Yeah.
I'm not high on Dwight. We're getting a lot of Dwight questions. I'm not high on Dwight, but out of these combinations, I guess I would go with them.
Yeah. All in the context of your value, your last man in, all that kind of stuff. We are at lock here, kind of snuck up on us. It's funny how on a 3-game slate we can take up the full hour. But I guess that'll do it. We'll be on the lookout for that Knicks lineup. Obviously, as we said earlier, we're expecting Nerlens Noel to slot in at the 5 for Mitch Robinson, but you never know with Tom Thibodeau. He's a man that can certainly surprise us all. Let's see. I guess we're not going to get that ownership. I'm really interested to see, David, the ownership on a guy like Lonnie Walker. With the expected ownership being so high, just somewhere that I wasn't there all day, so I'm surprised that the field is getting there with such regularity.
I don't understand it. I have zero, but I am just playing FanDuel tonight. But you're gonna have to get lucky. Maybe you get lucky. I have a game. You gonna play a game real quick?
I love games. Let's do it.
All right, we got close spreads tonight.
All
So
right.
let's pick winners.
Okay.
I think all the spreads are like 2 or 3 or something. So Nets at Mavs. I believe it's at Mavs. Who you got?
Give me the Nets. -2.
Okay. I agree. I agree with the Nets. All right, so we're both on the Nets. Knicks or Spurs?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be a chalk donkey tonight. Give me the Knicks, and it's probably just because the Spurs need to continue to lose, so I hope they lose. I'm going Knicks with the points.
I think I go Knicks too, but now we're picking all away teams. Celtics Lakers.
Give me the Lakers at home. I think LeBron takes over shorthanded Celtics. Give me the Lakers over 500 after tonight.
Excuse what I just said, screaming in the microphone, but I think I'll go. I think I'll go Lakers too, man. That's what I was going to go with was Lakers. Celtics beat them last time, right? Let me see. I think the Celtics got them last time. I have it pulled up here.
Let me see.
Celtics beat them 130 to 108, like 2 weeks ago.
That's right. That's right.
And there was no Jalen Brown in that game.
Yeah, no Jalen Brown that game. Let's see what else was going on. 130, 108. Gosh, ass kicking. LeBron played 31 minutes. Anthony Davis played 37.
What's the line? Let's see what the line was too. Is it in favor? Because the public's bet. Well, it is Celtics versus Lakers. The Lakers are 3-point favorites now. So biggest spread on the night. Everything else moved to 1.5.
Yeah,
you'd have to think that the public's betting the Lakers.
You would think so.
So I'll take the Celtics. I'll make that one different. I'll take the Celtics, and you take the Lakers.
All right, works for me, man. Well, that's gonna do it for us. But before we get out of here, if you've been tuning in, maybe you're tuning in on the YouTube or Twitter for these free streams now, and you're not a member yet at FTN Daily, I urge you to come check us out. We've got ownership projections every day, proprietary player projections from Kyle Murray and Alex Blickel. We've got all kinds of tools, the NBA on-off splits. The advanced DVP tool is one of my favorites to use, David. We've got the NBA Premium Discord channel where we're answering all the questions for this hour leading up to lock. We've got rankings every day from Fast Eddie Fear and myself. And all of that starts at $49.99 per month. But you can use the code FTNTV and get 15% off every month of your subscription. And that's not just good for the first month you sign up. That's good for the rest of the season. So use that code FTNTV for 15% off when you sign up here. And then when you join the Discord, tag David, tag me, let us know that you're here because we would love to have you. And with that, David, we will say good night to everybody. Good luck on this 3-game slate. We'll be in Discord to react to any news that breaks, lineups that come out. Again, watching for this Knicks lineup. So for David, I'm Zach. Shout out Thomas, our producer extraordinaire. As always,
let's get these beans.
Good night.